the Tea Party movement was they saw for the first time how special interests were a feeding frenzy here, and the voice of the American people and those representing limited government were not represented at all in its law. So I think it'll fall. I think the whole thing will fall like a house of cards should the mandate go beyond our Constitution.
I have my own question. Is the, and Doctor, you may know the answer to this, and John, is the, does the health care, the affordable, very sleazy word, the Obamacare, does that include the student loan provisions that they had between the, in the conference? Are you familiar with it?
Yes, and I'm almost sure, but like 99% sure, that was in the Reconciliation Act part and not in the actual PPACA.
Okay, so that was a separate...
I read them both and all of them, but
Part B.
I think it was in the Reconciliation Act, the one that they passed after the amendments. Remember the 300 pages roughly, or whatever,
right.
wanted afterwards. After that, you know, that they passed on saying that they would, like you
right.
referred to. So I don't think, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think
that it's linked to...
So it's not in the PPACA, it's in the Reconciliation Act, which they kind of colluded to say, well, we'll put that in there, the Reconciliation Act, if it passed the PPACA.
See, that was a power grab by the federal government. The banks were giving loans that were backed by the federal government, and then the government said, no, we're going to do it all. We're going to take all 6%, and then when you come back after you have finished your education, you will have to pay us back. But if you take 5 years in the federal service, you get that all remitted. And this is a grab because they know that most people in the federal government are more Democrats than Republicans. I thought that was something that's not been remarked about a lot, but certainly could change the balance of power.
It's kind of, but it's not in the PPACA, it's in the Reconciliation Act, so they probably won't consider it.
Alvin theory?
Okay. My question is, if the court unanimously decided against the EPA power grab, how they can contradict themselves by not striking down the Obamacare?
Okay, the question is how can the government be inconsistent against itself?
The court.
Well, I was making fun. So the question was, the government sometimes makes no sense upon itself. Will the court follow this nonsense model and do this 9-0 EPA?
Let me just very briefly. A tremendous amount depends on how the question is framed. It's important in politics how you frame the question. It's even more important in litigation and appeals. You know, a friend of mine says you can get the right answer to the wrong question. So a lot depends upon not only how the lawyers in the party brought the question to the court, but how the court wants to pretend that it heard the question.
That's right. As I think you noted earlier, there's a presumption of constitutionality with respect to statutes passed. And each branch of government is entitled to their interpretation of the constitutionality of an act. So it does come down to the case and controversy in question and how these issues can be posited directly to make it very clear to people who may be biased towards assuming the constitutionality. And I think I want to recognize Delegate Bob Marshall for confronting that question so directly in Virginia by passing this, by initiating the statute that made it unlawful for the federal government. So you presented a crystal clear constitutional issue here in Virginia, which I hope gets some attention in the federal court discussions.
Actually, I've been looking for a lawyer to ask this question. There is a contention that the 1160 was unconstitutional. Can you speak exactly to that issue, whether the the 1160, HB 1160 was constitutional or
Bob Marshall's bill.
Bob Marshall's bill? Can you speak to the constitutionality of it?
Under the state constitution or the federal?
Federal constitution.
I think the argument would be the state challenging the federal.
Yeah, I think you get, it's an interesting question, but it's clearly was an attempt to define the rights and responsibilities of the state and its jurisdiction vis-a-vis that of the federal government. So I think if that is unconstitutional on some level, the Obamacare is all the more unconstitutional in terms of its extension to state priorities that